Guten Abend, Brüder und Schwestern. Good evening, brothers and sisters. Welcome to this unique and special Fireside. We're excited to have you here. We're excited to put it on. I want to welcome you in behalf of the German Mission Foundation. My name is Stephen Schwendam, and I'm president of the foundation, and I've been asked to conduct tonight. The German Mission Foundation has been functioning for over 20 years. We've been engaged in translation of material from English to German for the saints there and those German-speaking peoples. And for the last several years, we have been supporting a team in Germany of Germans who are putting together content for social media. And so we've been excited in helping to provide the German people, German-speaking people, information about the church of a positive nature in German. We would like to invite any of you who are so inclined, since this isn't really a church meeting. At the doors there are some envelopes if any of you are inclined to contribute to us to help us fund this group in Germany. We'd love to have your financial participation. And also, we would love any of you to help us in the foundation, particularly if any of you have expertise in websites. We'd love to have you help. We've been trying to compile as much historical information as we possibly can on our website. And each of you, I think, I got to pull it out here, have been given a little card here. This is our German Mission Foundation information, and our foundation website is germanmissionfoundation.org. And on that you can find all sorts of information about German missionaries. I served in the South German Mission from 1968 to 1970. That's 30 years after the situations that happened with that the movie's based on. And I have great memories of that. We'd like to acknowledge our guests here tonight. Sister Terry Montague, author of the book Mine Angels Roundabout, from which the movie is based, is here, and she'll be addressing us. And also T.C. Christensen, the producer and director and author of the movie, is here, and he will be addressing us as well. And we also have Marshall McDonald at the piano, and he composed and wrote the music for the film, and will be presenting some of the music for us during the presentation. We're grateful to have Marshall with us tonight. Before we officially begin with prayer, I would like to recognize those that are here tonight and ask you to stand, if you would, at the appropriate time. Are there any here that were actually in the movie? Would you stand? Wow, look at that. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Are there any mission presidents here that served mission leaders? I didn't see any that come in, but all of you have served German-speaking missions. Did somebody say yes? 2 mission presidents. Awesome. Great to have you here. Okay. All of you who have served German-speaking missions, would you stand up, please? Wow, look at that. Just awesome. Thank you very much. Now, one last category. All of those who are related to or descended from the missionaries that are depicted in the book and the movie, would you please stand? Look at that. We honor you and honor your ancestors and relatives. Thank you very much. What's portrayed in the book and the movie touches many of our lives, as you can see, for those of us who have served in Germany and relatives. My father was born in Sugar City, Idaho, and lived in Newdale for many years, and was 2 years older than Elder Norm Siebold, who's depicted in the movie. And my father and his family knew the Siebold's very, very well. It's interesting how they're connected. I grew up in Illinois because my father ended up back there during the war, so I never knew the Siebold's directly, but my parents always talked about the Seabolds. And this movie just brought to heart and brought to mind what had happened. And also in this building, one of the missionaries, George Kuhn, who is depicted in the book and whose picture is at the end of the movie, attended church here for the many years, and he died in 1995, and I knew him well. Interesting enough, I told Sister Montague that we never talked about Germany when all the years I knew him here. We'll begin the services this evening by singing the German missionary anthem, Sehet ihr Völker, which is Hark All Ye Nations in English, but Sister Jeanette Sonnenberg will be the chorister, and Marcia McDonald is at the piano. If you don't want to sing it in German, you can sing it in English, that's fine. But there should be sheets there. We'll sing all the verses, after which the opening prayer will be given by Kim W. Nelson, a member of the German Mission Foundation Board. Let me just outline the rest of the program here to a point. Following the opening prayer, we will have Stephen Tuft, member of the board, will introduce Sister Montague. Following Sister Montague, we will have a musical number by Brother McDonald, who, I understand, you correct me if I'm wrong, Brother McDonald, prepared the music for the movie, and we'll be playing that. Is that correct? Okay. Just got to make sure I'm correct on that. Following Brother McDonald, we will have Brother Scott Anderson will introduce T.C. Christensen, and then we'll turn the time over to T.C. Christensen for the remainder of the program. So we'll proceed to this point. So, Sehet ihr Völker.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful unto Thee to be here this evening, and we're so grateful for those good people and their talents that they're willing to share with us, and to be able to experience things that we would not know about, the stories of those wonderful missionaries and good people. We're so grateful unto Thee for the opportunity to have served among the German people, and for those good saints who have always been such a great example to all of us. We ask Thy Spirit to attend us at this time. We ask thy blessings to be upon all of us, with the blessings that only thou would know that we are in need of. We ask thy blessings in particular to be with those good saints in Germany and the German-speaking lands. We pray for these things and thank thee in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Terry Bowley Montague, not Montague. I called her Montague the first time I met her, and she said, no, there's a story behind that. Please don't ask her unless you have about half an hour. Montague. Grew up in Rupert, lived most of her life in Rupert, attended BYU, met her husband there. They've been married for 48 years and have 3 daughters. She is a bundle of warm, energetic motion and a delight to be around. She gave me her bio, and that's not in it. You have to know that about Terry, and you will in just a few minutes. She's an accomplished researcher and author. She's published extensively, has written for the Ensign magazine and Meridian magazine. She loves to tell stories. She loves to talk about her missionaries. She considers these people her missionaries. We're most grateful that she could be here and set the stage for the wonderful movie that we'll be talking about. And without her book, we wouldn't have that. And by the way, she would be probably upset with me for saying this, but her book is still available at Deseret Book and Amazon. Go get it if you don't have it. She would never say that. Terry, please.
I think Steve's in trouble. But he is right. If I just wanted to talk about the missionaries, did you bring your gong? No gong. So what I did was I wrote out my talk, and I'm going to read it to you and try not to get so off topic that you don't get home tonight. But I love those missionaries, and I love their families. I feel like I have good relationships with so many of them, and I'm so delighted to be here and have a chance to just maybe inform you a little bit about some of the things that happened while I was researching. And afterward, if you want to come and talk to me, I'd be happy to do that. I'd be happy to talk to you. August 24th of 1984 was the 45th anniversary of the evacuation of the West German mission. It was also the date of the first interview I had with Norman Siebold. I had in my mind the goal of writing an article about Brother Siebold's experiences during his time in Nazi Germany. In that first interview, I had a prepared list of questions. After several hours, I was so overwhelmed by the complexity of the account, and I was beginning to wonder if I could verify everything he told me. I asked, "Do you know where any of these other missionaries are now?" And Brother Siebold shrugged and said, "No, but I think one of them has a son who does the 10 o'clock news in Idaho Falls." Maybe he noticed my dawning dismay because he shook his finger at me and said, "You better get this right or people will think you have bubbles in your brain." That's sort of what I was thinking too at that moment, and maybe I already had bubbles in my brain. I didn't know it then. I know it now, though, that I had every manner of help available to pull this story together. I just had to put in the work. My first move was to make an appointment with the church archives. There I received a folder containing 4 conference reports published in a 1940s Deseret News edition. And there were executive documents related to the mission's activities and a list of the missionaries' names and hometowns. On August 25th of 1939, the West German Mission Office staff were sending out telegrams, making phone calls, and travel arrangements, as well as feverishly packing individual trunks and suitcases and moving them to the railway station. Since President Wood believed the crisis would end in a month, he told the staff to take the mission documents to the basement. One of the office missionaries thought to slip in a list of the West German missionaries' names and hometowns. 6 years later, in May 1945, the Allies marched into the ruins of Frankfurt. Owen Ken Earl, an evacuated missionary and an Air Force captain, was based near Frankfurt and received permission to visit the city. He expected the mission office to be a pile of rubble, just like the rest of the city. His first surprise was that the 3-storied stone building was standing intact. He walked around the property, noting some damage to the yard, but nothing else. Then Captain Earl noticed there were people in the building, and he knocked on the door several times before someone finally cracked it open. He was astonished to discover the people in the building were Frankfurt members of the church. They had sought refuge in that consecrated building after their homes were destroyed in the bombing and lived there until the war was over. Captain Earl received the records from the basement, packed them up, took them back to his base, and sent them on to Salt Lake. And that's where they were when I went looking. I have to say, at first, I felt a little disappointed by the lack of information in those records. Truly, they had enough to get my research started. However, the scant information there was because of the instruction to the missionaries to remain silent about their experiences in Nazi Germany. Now, this wasn't like a gag order, but this was to protect the church in Germany as well as the German members. Anyway, that didn't stop me because I did have that list of names and hometowns. And, that wouldn't work now, but, but what I did was that towns have school districts. And I sent letters to the school offices to inquire about the missionaries, each individual missionary there at the school district office. That's how I found some of the missionaries. And like I said, this was 1984 and not now, but I got quite a few from there. And that's how I found Brother Vern Merritt. I sent him a letter telling him who I was and what I was doing and asked for an interview. Right away, I got a letter back. He wanted to know my bishop's name, address, and phone number, and my stake president's name, address, and phone number. I found that a little strange, but I followed along. A few days later, I got a package from Brother Merritt with a tape recording in it. Now, later, I learned that he was being so careful about who I was because he saw Idaho on my return address, and he thought that I was a member of the Aryan nations. That's okay, I'm not. After I heard the tape, I turned to my husband and said, "We need to go to Utah. I have to talk to Brother Merritt." And Quinn, who was my willing chauffeur then, and he still is, he gets me everywhere I need to be. As I rang the Merritt's doorbell, Brother Merritt came through the door to the porch and asked, "Are you Terry?" And I said, "Well, are you Vern?" He grabbed my hand and pulled me into the house saying, "I knew you were coming. I always knew you would come. I always knew you would come." That was a memorable moment. Brother Merritt led me into the house where there were people seated in a circle. He introduced them as his family and said he was told by President Wood and then Apostle Joseph Fielding Smith not to speak of his experiences in Germany. He said, "I never did." Brother Merritt then shared that his family was there to hear the story for the first time. I was stunned, and all I could think of for the next couple of hours was, what if I hadn't found him? What if I hadn't come? Following that, I strengthened my resolve to discover and document as many stories of the missionaries as I could. since there were so many missionaries had moved away from their hometown, so I checked all of the hometown school districts. I still had a bunch I still had to get together, but I did have that list of their names. And it made me even more determined to listen more carefully for inspiration as I started going to libraries and looking through phone books. Once we were on our way home from a camping vacation and pulled into this little tiny gas station. I got that familiar ping and hurried into the station where I asked for a phone book. It was a pretty thin phone book about that. I looked at each name in each column on each page, and there on the last page and the last column was Grant Weber, one of my missionaries. I think I screamed, and I think they heard me on the other side of that little tiny town. When I interviewed, I took the list and I quizzed other missionaries about their companions' whereabouts. I found many of them that way too. Once when I was really desperate to find Ellis Rasmussen, I contacted the church membership office and begged them to help me find him. With a name like Rasmussen. And they told me he had died. And I think they were just trying to get rid of me because thanks to another former missionary, I learned he was in Israel helping to establish the Jerusalem Center. I think he was surprised to learn that he'd passed away several years earlier. I also took advantage of Brother Siebold's comment about the news anchor at KAIFI, and he was right. The anchorman was J. Hildebrandt, son of West German missionary Arnold Hildebrandt. After I located George Wimmer in Ogden, he offered to mail me his mission journal. The family of another, Leland Blotter, who had passed away, sent me a portion of his journal. Some of them let me use their photo albums, and probably I better not talk about that because it would take too long. Brother Tuft asked me to talk about why I wrote Mine Angel's Roundabout. Sometimes while I was working on it, I wondered the same thing. It was 5 years worth of research. On one level, I did it because it was such a great story. It was full of conflict, good guys, really bad guys, and ticking clocks. And that's all the elements of a great story. I also wrote it for the missionaries' families, for the families who might never have heard the stories because their obedient missionaries did not tell them. Recently, I got a letter from Barbara North Smith. Her mother, Anna, was the Woods' adopted daughter. Do you remember Anna from the movie? Barbara and I have become good friends over the years. She told me she always was puzzled about why her mom, who was only 15 years old at the time of the evacuation, was so quiet about her experience in Germany. Recently, Barbara wrote and thanked me for filling in the gaps and answering the questions she had about her mom's life. Another reason I wrote it was for the missionaries who, after the evacuation, didn't see each other again. After the missionaries went back to the United States, I'm going to skip ahead. No, I'll tell you this. Some of them were sent home because they were close to finishing their mission anyway. Others of them were reassigned to different districts in the United States, different missions and districts in the United States. And so they did not know what happened to each other. They just knew that they had known each other in Germany. When I started the research, I had this fantasy that we would have this huge dinner prepared for the Relief Society, of course, and it would be in a huge recreational hall, and all of them could come, and I would carry a pitcher from table to table and refill their water glasses, and I could hear what they were saying to each other. I would hear about the miracles in their lives, and about their testimonies and what it would sound like when they were speaking to someone else who had known that experience. Well, primarily, though, I wrote it for those missionaries, most of them young, most of them filled with the enthusiasm and determination to preach and to teach and bear testimony as they went forth obediently as part of the restoration of the Savior's church on earth. In Nazi Germany, they did not get that opportunity. Their hearts were full of desire, but the laws of that land forbade it. Now, I like to think that through their stories, however they are told, is a fulfillment of the West German missionaries' desire to teach, to preach, and testify, especially at this time when we are so in need of spiritual strengthening, of courage to live obediently and in faith, and be reminded that all of us have a part in the restoration of the Savior's gospel. I think the 5 years of research was worth it. I cannot even begin to tell you what impact this quest had on my life and the life of my family. Our daughter, who was at the height of all this research, was 5 years old. And she had a hard time getting the neighborhood kids to play Nazis and missionaries with her. I was watching World at War. It was being shown on A&E TV. Remember A&E? She thought the A in A&E stood for Adolf. I had maps and posters and charts all down the length of our longest hall. When the first issue of the book came out, it was released for the families, for the missionaries and their families. And the second one came out several years later when the missionaries started passing away. And the third one, which is the red cover one that's available on Amazon, was the one that TC suggested I needed to get out again because he thought the movie was going to get a lot of attention. Do you think so? But other than that, I learned that I'm going to tell you another little story. One of the ways that it impacted me is that Norm always said when he was in a crowd, he looked for missionaries. Well, that kind of rubbed off on me, and I started. I was the sister in the ward that had the car, and so I was driving him to the laundromat, to the grocery store, and to Walmart, and spent most P days with them, as well as sometimes I even did a few splits with some elders. We don't do that either anymore. One day I had picked up Elder Zog and Elder Zuniga. And Elder Zog had been called from Austria, and Elder Zuniga had come from Santiago. And we were going to the laundromat, and Elder Zuniga said, "Sister Montag," which is what he always called me. He asked me if I'd heard a story about some missionaries that got trapped in Nazi Germany. And I said, yeah, I've heard that story. And he said, "Do you think it's true?" And I said, "Elder, I know it's true." So I dropped them off at the laundromat. I went home, and this was before cell phones. I went home and hurried and dialed Norm's phone number. I said, "I've got a pair of missionaries I'd like you to meet." He said, "Well, I've got a meeting in about 40 minutes, and I have to leave pretty soon." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I went over and gathered them up from the laundromat. And they said, "We needed to go to the grocery store. Where are we going?" And I said, I want you to meet somebody. So I turned and went down a road that took them out of their district. And they were having little fits in the back seat. "Where are we going? Where are we going? This is not our district. We're going to get in trouble." And I said, no, just be patient. I want to introduce you to someone. They said, who is it? Is this a member? Is this somebody we can teach? Because they were thinking of bookwork, right? And records. And I said, oh, well, you'll see when we get there. So we pulled into Norm's house there on the Osequa Highway. And I took them up to the door, and he very graciously allowed us to come in. And then I said, this is Brother Norman Siebold, and he is the missionary who helped a lot of missionaries escape into Denmark. And now I had known those two, Elder Zog and Elder Zuniga, for quite a few months, and normally they talk all of the time. And when we went into Norm's house and sat at his dining room table, he sat and said, and talked a little bit about the evacuation, and then he said, because of that, I know and I bear testimony that the Lord will always look after his missionaries. And then he said it again, and then he said it again. And he said, now we've got to leave. And so, and I see Josh laughing a little bit. So we left, put him back in the car, and they did not say one word, not either one of them. And I said, well, what did you think of that? And one of them said, I forgot to bring my camera. And that was all I got from him. That was on P-Day. And that weekend, Elder Zuniga got a phone call from Elder Packard and told him that his visa was being revoked and he was going to be sent to a detention center in Florida and sent back to Chile. And we were all heartbroken. And the church did make arrangements for him to stay in an LDS home while he was there waiting to be deported. And he called me once and said he was okay. He said, whenever I start feeling sorry for myself, I remember what Brother Siebold said about the Lord taking care of his missionaries. And I said, well, that is true. And he said, I hope so. Then we got word that he was being transferred back to Chile. That's okay, but he was being transferred to the very most southern tip of Chile. And you know where Tierra del Fuego is? The land of fire and ice, volcanoes and icebergs. And the church had just established a branch there. And he was sent down there to train the branch members to lead the branch. He'd sat in our bishopric meetings every Sunday for probably 3 or 4 months, and he knew what he was doing. And then I got a call from him once again, and he said, the Lord really does take care of his missionaries and the people the missionaries teach. That made it all worth it. It did for me. And when Brigham Young first sent missionaries out, he talked to them, and I remember reading one of the talks where he said, you may go there and people will hate you, but go anywhere. You may go out there and people will try to kill you, but go anywhere. And he said, you may lose your family while you are gone, but go anywhere. And when you think of those missionaries that went out early in the history of the church, and the things that they did, and then the things that they did when they came back, you have to know that that is truly a testimony. The Lord really does take care of his missionaries. And as Brother Zuniga said, and the people they teach. I hope that we'll all remember and ponder about what our part is in this restoration, and that we will all be able to go forward with courage and with obedience and with faith. And I say this in Jesus' name, amen.
Marshall McDonald is one of the most gifted, amazing musicians you will ever meet. He's going to speak to you for just a minute, but he could stand on his head and play that piano. He can lay on the bench backwards and play it upside down. He's on the church hymn committee. He has so many awards for his compositions. So you're going to hear him tonight, but I just want to introduce him for a minute because Marshall is so gifted and amazing. You're going to write in your journal tonight that you had a chance to be with Marshall McDonald, and here's Marshall.
Thank you, and you can write in your journal that I'm the least of these tonight that you're going to hear from, but that was so beautiful, and thank you. I just want to set up just this song before we have Brother Christensen speak to us. And a number of years ago, many of you might recall that the BYU Museum of Art sponsored Carl Bloch's artwork from the Frederiksborg Castle, and you had a chance to walk around and you could put on a headset even and learn some things. And I was a part of a project just to write music inspired by Carl Bloch and the background music of your experience at the BYU Museum of Art. And I studied his artwork for quite a while and wrote a song about many of his paintings. And at the end of that experience, as I was writing a final song for that album, I just felt inspired that I should write something that summarized his whole journey. And as I studied his paintings, I'd see the Savior's hands. And often in a Carl Bloch artwork, the Savior's hands would point you to the message of what he wanted you to feel and experience. And I just thought, it's all about the Master's hand, and the Master's hand is pointing the way. And so I wrote a song called The Master's Hand a number of years ago, and it ended up being just kind of a little bit more epic than the rest of that album. And I had a really sweet prompting, a tender mercy of sorts, where I just felt, this song is going to be in a movie someday. I'm not exaggerating that a single bit. And had a beautiful opportunity to help a little bit with some music, with whether 17 Miracles or Ephraim's Rescue, and in some ways. And it was just a really cool tender mercy about a year or so ago when TC contacted me and said, we're really looking at using the Master's hand in this film, Escape from Germany. And it was actually a little bit of an emotional experience, because it was a tender mercy of the Lord telling me before how a song would be used and not knowing how it would be used, and then to see it really find its place finally a number of years later in his beautiful film. And Nephi invited us at the beginning of the Book of Mormon. He said, I'll show unto you the tender mercies of the Lord are over all those whom he hath chosen. And then Moroni finishes the Book of Mormon saying, remember how merciful the Lord hath been of the children of men from the creation to Adam. They invite us to look for tender mercies. I think that whether you look for a tender mercy in the Book of Mormon or you see a tender mercy in a T.C. Christensen film, you practice seeing them so you can get good at recognizing them in your own lives. And I bear witness of the Lord's hand and his tender mercies and of the Savior Jesus Christ tonight, and want to share this song with you. And we'll play a little bit of orchestration, and I'll play along with it, and just invite you to not only see the tender mercies of Germany and the tender mercies of the escape, but also the ways that the Savior is involved in your lives, and to see those tender mercies and always hold on to those. I testify of him and the reality of him and his goodness and tender mercy. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
My grandfather was a rescuer. Ephraim's rescue touched our family amazingly as they put themselves in the place of Grandpa, 17 years old. Been in Salt Lake for 5 weeks on a handcart, turning around and going back. But watching the miracles unfold. But for those of us who served in Germany, this miracle story. You might wonder why we set up so many chairs tonight. Because we invited all those from the other side of the veil that were touched by this story to come. And there are many more than you. They're in attendance. And you think I'm kidding? I have felt their presence tonight. And believe they've come to thank these great people for what they've done to pass on faith and a legacy that changes all of us. D.C. Christensen is an amazing gift. He's not only a great director, fantastic disciple. I don't know if you've seen his lighting effects, but he is a gifted director, not just in storytelling, but the details. Watch his lighting the next time you watch his movie. See the details of what he puts in to make light tell a story. Because his stories are about light. His light. And they strengthen all of us and bless us all. 1980, he married Katie. They have 2 beautiful children that have also helped with the movies at times and been in them a time or two. In the midst of all that, if you saw the number of movies he's produced, he has 260 awards for the 260 movies he produced. I think it's something like that. And they're amazing. But this latest one touches all of us, and we are so grateful to be with a man that not only is a gifted artist, but a dedicated disciple to speak to us tonight. TC.
Well, Scott, that was good, and that was long. Thank you for that. Thank you all for coming here, and for my 2 compadres. Gosh, Terry, the things you went through. I'd never been able to make a film about this subject had she not done that research. And then here comes Mr. Liberace over there. That is the first time I have heard this played live. The first time I heard it played is, we're friends, Marshall will send me, hey, here's my latest album, whatever. I was in the car, I put it in, I listened, that was, I believe, the first song comes up on the album. And it only took me about a minute, and I turned to my wife and said, this is train music. Do you hear that beat? That chugga, 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 chugga. I've got an idea about a train movie. That's the music for the movie. That was a great moment when that came together with me, with story and music. A friend of mine was in a meeting with President Monson. This is before President Monson died. I just want you to make sure you know that. And in this meeting, President Monson said, in this church, we need fewer meetings and more movies. Words of a prophet. That's what we're going to talk about. We get to talk about movies, a movie, Making Escape from Germany. Now, you need to know, I have been to quite a few mission reunions in my life. I've been around a lot of missionaries and them being involved with our films and so forth. And here's what you need to know. I have never been around missionaries that love the people they served and the land they served in like you do. That's the truth. Bless you for that great attribute which you have. I've never felt the love like I have amongst you. As we were going to begin filming the very first day on Escape from Germany, my partner is Ron Tanner, and Ron came over to me and he said, hey, how many miracles do you think are in this movie? And I said, I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. I hadn't thought about it that way. I don't know how many miracles are in it. But it got me thinking about it. And that night, when I went home to prepare for the next day's work, I went through the whole script. And I came back the next day and I said to Ron, I counted them up. And for me, there are 21. They are miracles. I don't know how else you could explain them. There are 21 miracles in this film. Well, 15 years earlier, we had done 21. We had done 17 miracles. Now we're up to 21. 17 is so old-fashioned. We're growing. We're doing bigger and better. 21 is what I counted for this. Well, as we got going with this production, one of the things that she got me interested in early was one specific member of this group of missionaries that had to leave, and that was Irma Rosenhan. Irma Rosenhan, I loved her story. I thought she was a very interesting person, interesting things about her. So I went to see her because she was still alive. She was 103 years old. And I went to see her and talked to her. And you know what happened? About within a month of when this picture was taken, COVID hit. And I called her after a few weeks and I said, Irma, we can't do it right now. It's not the time. It's not going to work. Hang on, lady, because I had a part for her. I wanted her to be in the movie. Well, guess what? She went and died on me. Couldn't hold on. And Irma passed away at 105 about a year before we started filming. Well, I wanted to put Irma in the movie. And here's a problem that I had that I was dealing with. I had a terrific first act for Irma. She finds out from President Beale that she's got to leave. And then she has a little trouble going and getting a visa and so forth. I had a third act. The third act was that she gets to Holland and nobody's there to meet her and she doesn't know what to do, and then there's this kind of amazing thing that happens. But I did not have a second act. When you're telling stories about real people or even in fiction, you want to have at least 3 acts to a person's story. You don't want to just introduce Irma and then the next time we see her, she is made it and she's all fine and everything. That's not good storytelling. I needed a second act for Irma Rosenhan. I talked to Irma about it. I talked to Terry about it. I was looking around trying to see what I could find to use as the second act. I couldn't find anything that I felt good about. And so I finally came to this decision. You know, I make movies about true stories, about real people. But I made this decision. I said, you know what? I'm going to make up a story. And I made up a second act. I knew that I wanted peril, and I've got this young sister missionary traveling by herself with a lot of Nazis in close quarters. And so I'm going to show you the clip of what I made up, of what I came up with. Okay, ready for lights. I made it up. That's what I came up with. It's the best I could do. I made it up. When we were filming, the great majority of the extras, the people in the background that do not deliver lines, but they're there and they're walking by and they're sitting in the train and so forth, are descendants. Do we have any descendants? Do you have anybody with the Rosenhan family that's here? Of course we do, yes, yeah. One day, while we were filming, I was talking to one of the Rosenhans, Dan Rosenhan. And I said to Dan, listen, I have to apologize because I made that up. I made that scene up. I explained the whole blah, blah, blah about first act and third act and things that nobody cares about but me. And I just explained all that and I said, Dan, so listen, I'm sorry. Will you tell the other members of the family and so forth that I'm sorry, but I just needed to have something in there, and that's what I came up with. I made it up. Dan said to me, I don't know if that ever happened to Irma or not, but Irma's mother had to escape Germany before World War I. And that incident happened to Irma's mother. He said, we thought you were using Irma's mother's story to tell her own story. That's how it was working on this film. So many different amazing things coming up all the time. Now, one of the reasons I was attracted to this story is because President Wood decided on one man, one elder to put in charge. Who does that? It's two. Missionaries are two. You know, we know it. It's always two. One. He chose one. He chose Norm Siebold, an Idaho farm boy. You go get this done, because he had to stay and get other things done that a mission president would have to do. I think that Norm Siebold was chosen for two primary reasons. He was incredibly spiritual and he was tough. He was known for not taking any guff. I want to show the clip of what happens. Now Norm has gathered up a few missionaries and a local policeman accosts them and says, give me all your money. This is what happened.
Listen up.
Then the world.
Over my dead body. So if it's possible, come with me. Where to? The police station. I'm not going anywhere with you. You have no authority here. I'll talk to the military police, but I won't leave this station. You will come with me now. I am an American citizen. I demand to speak with the military police. Don't you touch me! If you touch me, there's going to be a fight. I demand to speak with the military police. Can you demand that? You just did. Where are we?
Huh? Over my dead body? That's the answer? We got a Mormon Clint Eastwood. That's who that guy is. I can tell you when I was a missionary, if I got pulled over, traffic violation, whatever, I'd just start crying. That's what I do. Norm says, over my dead body. And you have to know, I didn't make that up. Terry didn't make that up. Norm said that, told that story, but others corroborated and said, yeah, this other missionary, he took our money back, put it in his pocket and said, over my dead body. That's pretty tough. Well, here's the spiritual side. That incident led him to something that had he just gone along and did what the officer told him to do, the officer with a gun, that guy, if he would have done that, it would not have led him to the next encounter he had, which was this.
Haben Sie einen Beweis, dass diese junge Männer ihr Geld nicht für Fahrscheine benutzen?
Nein, aber mir ist klar, dass Sie das Geld für etwas Schädliches verwenden könnten.
Was mir klar ist, ist, dass Sie keine Befugnisse am Bahnhof haben.
Wo auch immer ich Sie sehe, muss ich illegale Aktivitäten aufhalten.
Und warum waren Sie überhaupt am Bahnhof auf Patrouille? So dachte ich. Verschwinden Sie und lassen Sie sich hier nicht wiederblicken. Ein awesome Morgens. Sehr gut, Bibel. Eine Surviving German. Keeps us with you. Auf Wiedersehen. Danke.
The letter. He was led there and received that letter. What was on that letter? What did it say? We get asked that all the time. What did that letter say? Terry asked Norm. He said, I don't know what was on the letter. He had forgotten or didn't know or whatever. I don't know what was on the letter. What we obviously was some type of get out of jail free kind of a thing with an official stamp or whatever. He had the letter. And because of that letter, I have been told by so many people how wonderful that is, that letter saved Norm. He would have gone to jail had he not been able to pull that out of his pocket when he was being hauled off. That letter saved him. Well, it did, huh? Until you look deeper into that. You know what really saved Norm was not the letter. It was, as the Gestapo pointed out, good members of the church he had known, and they were good people. And he'd put that together. If you're part of that group, then I want to give you this letter. People living their lives in Nazi Germany that kept trying to do good. That's who saved Norm Seabold. I look out at this crowd, and you know, on one thing I think, we don't know who we touch in our lives. How many people have been your neighbors and moved away and they were this and that, or you had an interaction with them and you changed the course of their life because you're not a prophet, you're not the greatest of any, but you're trying to do what's right. That's how this works. And I think that's to be something to be said for those great German members of the church. They saved Norm Seabold. We're going to take just a short moment here. We're going to see if there's just a few questions. We don't get to come and talk to the German mission every week. We're here now. Scott, will you bring, or Steve, will you turn all the lights up now for us, please? And if you have a question about the film, you haven't understood why we did or whatever, I'll answer it. Terry's here to answer. If you have a musical question, Marshall, answer. Who wants to know something? You do, right there in the back.
How did you decide which stories to put into the movie?
How do I decide which stories? Well, let me tell you first this. In our culture, our church, we have so many great stories, I would never run out of great stories to tell. That being said, I think of myself as kind of an everyman. I read a story, and if it touches me, and I think I have something I could add to it and do something with, then I look deeper into it. There's a lot of good stories out there that I just don't, but they don't get me, and I'm not going to put 2 years in, which is what it takes, to do a film unless it does. Yeah, yeah, Brenda. Sure.
How did COVID affect the story? Did it change it at all? Did it cut the story down?
How did what affect it?
COVID?
Oh, COVID. How did it affect the film? Well, you know, we had to kind of sit and wait for 2 years. I had several movie friends who continued to shoot and do some independent films and so forth, and I wasn't willing to do that because all it would take is somebody gets it, and now you're shut down and you still have to pay people. It's a big mess, so we just waited. The way I think that it mostly helped us was it gave me more prep time. And I think the script improved, and I found some actors that I probably would not have found had COVID not been there. Good question, yeah. Did we do, yeah, sir.
Your train scenes in the trains look so authentic. I was in Germany, they look like they were when I was there. How did you do that?
Asking about the trains. Well, I'm going to confess something to you. The reality, a lot of those trains are the Heber Creeper, you know, up there in Heber. But we did go to Budapest and filmed some old trains and so forth there too to intercut. And I had a couple of train advisors, and I'll tell you what. Are there any train advisors, train people here? Good, because they're kind of nuts. Because they really get into trains. And I found out after, like when President Wood says, hey, does this train go any faster? And the elder reaches up and he pushes that throttle. We pushed it the wrong way. Oh, the worst thing ever. Let's shut the whole production down. There were a lot of those kind of train things that I learned later that I did wrong. Yeah, I see a little girl's going to ask me something. How did I choose my actors? Here's what we do. We have casting sessions, and the agencies send actors in, or sometimes, I've done this a long time, I know a lot of actors, and I ask them to come in. You know what else get asked a lot, but it's kind of like your question is, are these members of the church that are playing these roles? Well, here's the answer to that. You know, if I have an actor in front of me auditioning and I ask them, hey, are you a member of the church? That's against the law. I can't do that. But as it turns out, I would say 90% of the actors in our films are members of the church. And I think the reason is they get it. If we're making a film about mission, they know what a missionary is. They know what a mission president does. They get all of that, and they portray it more truthfully, and I choose them. Yeah, that's how it works. Robert.
In the film, there's a missionary who's doing a lot of filming with his 8mm camera. Is there any footage available from what he shot? I know Terry's got the cameras.
Asking about, is there any Farrell McComber's footage? Anybody seen it? It's in the movie. It's in the epilogue. We show, I don't know, probably 20 seconds of what he actually shot, which I just loved. A movie guy, a missionary who was taking movies. I glommed right onto that. Oh yeah, Dick.
Full Extraction is on YouTube.
Oh, it is.
It's
He's saying that the full piece is on YouTube.
That he read is on YouTube. I had to put on, and it's called Germany 1939, and it's by Alton Wright, A-L-T-O-N Wright, W-R-I-G.
Germany, 1939, Alton Wright. See, yeah. All right, very good. I'm going to take one more question from this sister, and then I'm going to close this thing up. Did the mission president really hijack the train? Would I make up something like that? Would I make up Irma Rosenhan being accosted by... Yeah, he did. I had to get it out of her even. She was so used to not talking about it. But as I was reading her writings, I called her and said, Terry, I think they stole this train. That's what it looks to me like. She goes, yeah, they stole the train. You gotta love President Wood, huh? That he would do that. Oh my gosh. That'd be a great mission present for your kids, I think. All right, I have this one other concept I want to tell you as I close this up. So as you saw in the film, Norm comes into Cologne, the first big train station. And it's chaos, and it's crazy, and he doesn't know what to do because should I stand here? Nobody's listening, they don't answer my questions, what should I do? And he decides he's going to do the whistle. Well, I've thought a lot about that whistle. And I want you to know a few of the things that I thought about that whistling. So he's whistling our hymn, Do What Is Right. Missionaries start coming forward out of the woodwork. I don't think that what Norm did in that case is just a song. Had he stood up there and actually vocalized it, sang, you got Nazis around, Gestapo around. They wouldn't like that. That's too out of the ordinary. They don't like things that are out of the ordinary. But people whistle. And Norm whistled. And those who had ears to hear heard it. And those who did not hear it. And those who heard it, it touched them. And they came forward. I think there's something about whistling that is special. Now, here's an illustration of this. About a month ago, we had a primary program in our ward. My wife is the primary chorister. We don't have that many in the primary. So she had all of them stand on one side, this side of the pulpit. Everybody go to this side of the pulpit. Nobody on this side. Well, there was one boy who didn't want to go to this side of the pulpit. Let's see. That's Theo. That's him. He didn't want to go up the stairs. Theo's got his own ideas. And Theo said to himself, I'm not going with them. I'm going this way. And Theo stood right there by himself. My wife starts the song, and all the kids sing. And you know what Theo did? He whistled. Theo whistled what the song was, and he did it perfectly, on pitch, loud, stood there and whistled it. And do you know who the congregation heard? They heard Theo. Every primary has a Theo. You know that if you've been in primary. And Theo cut through all of this, and that's who he heard. At President Wood's funeral, his missionaries stood and whistled, Do What Is Right. I want you to whistle with me. We're going to whistle, Do What Is Right. Marsh, is this good? Do. Is that okay? Did you hear that? Do. Okay. Wait, I get to start you. I'm the director. Don't go off being your own actor. Okay, ready? Well, that is about the worst whistling, do what is right, I have ever heard. But I love it. I love to hear that whistling. Somebody's forgetting who's the director again. Who is that? One of my actors, probably. Theo. Do you know, in thinking about that entire situation, I think that this story, and specifically that part of the story with Elder Siebold, is a great metaphor of the Savior. He goes out, he's by himself. He goes out to find those that are lost. And he communicates with his whistle, and those who have ears to hear, hear it. And they come forward. And Norm takes them, gathers them, and takes them to safety, takes them home. You know, Marsh, when you thought, the name of your song is The Master's Hand. And my impression has been that I took the Master's Hand, I made it a theme song for missionaries, about missionaries. That song is about the Savior. It's about the Master's Hand. I think all of us were touched hearing that played live and knowing that what that represents. That is a song about the Savior, and at its heart, our film is about the Savior. Thank you for letting me be here. I tell you all of these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Wow. Ausgezeichnet, as they'd say in German. That's terrific. Well, we thank you, Sister Montague and Brother Christensen, for this wonderful evening. We have a small gift for them. Do you want to give that now, Scott?
They can see it.
Okay, we have some gifts for Brother Christensen, Sister Montague, and for Marshall. Appreciate that. As Scott mentioned, you notice we set up a lot of chairs. We didn't know how many to expect. So if any of you can help us take some down afterwards, we certainly would appreciate it. That would save a couple of our backs. So if you do that, that would be helpful. In the movie, when President and Sister Wood are leaving at the train station, a couple with their daughter comes and sings "God be with you till we meet again" to them in German. So therefore, we are going to have a closing hymn this evening. It's on the back side of your sheet. Gott sei mit euch bis aufs Wiedersehen. In German. We're going to sing it in German. And Brother Marshall has agreed to play it for us. We are grateful to all of you who have come this evening. I've been richly blessed at this opportunity that we've had to be together. Following the closing hymn, Brother Robert Sykes, member of the board of the German Mission Foundation, will offer the invocation. Thank you all for coming. This is a great way to start conference weekend, right? to believe and have the Spirit of the Lord with us. And we're greatly appreciated. And as we say in German, tschüss.
Our dear Heavenly Father, as we come before Thee this evening at the conclusion of this fireside, we're so very grateful for Thy Spirit which has been with us here today. And we're grateful for all those that have spent the time to prepare, talking about this wonderful movie. Sister Terry and Brother Christensen, we're grateful for their efforts to prepare this, which explains so many miracles about this event of the evacuation of Germany. We're grateful, Father, for Thy Spirit, for the presence of miracles in our lives today, for the inspiration this movie has left us with this evening. We ask Thee to bless those who are serving in our wonderful German missions, that they will be successful in finding those that are honest in heart and bring them to the gospel of Jesus Christ. This is our prayer in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.